Hello, welcome to another episode of Jim's Allotment Garden. Okay, so I'm just putting in the remainder of the normal broccoli, the calabrese, and what I've done is I've basically cleared the ground. I've got all the weeds out and I'm just putting the new ones in. But what I wanted to quickly point out, a couple of things. Obviously when you put the plants in, you need to just sort of look at the leaves and stuff, and as you can see on this one, there's a couple of sort of holes towards the bottom. Now if you turn it round, what you'll actually find, I don't know if you can see it, but right in there is a little teeny caterpillar, and I've spotted these have obviously come in, and these, I'm not quite sure what the caterpillars are. They could be cabbage white, but I've noticed there's a couple of the leaves that have been sort of nibbled at, so it's well worthwhile whilst you're putting the plants in just to quickly go around. I've just seen another one just on that leaf in there, and all you got to do is just rub your thumb over it. Look out for eggs as well, obviously. Just look around the plant just to make sure it's healthy. Now, I did actually notice when I put a video out the other day that I didn't realise at the time, but when I watched the video back, there was actually a cabbage white butterfly in the greenhouse with me. I didn't actually realise at the time. It was behind me when I was answering some of the questions. But so obviously I'm reasonably sure that's what it is. So I'm basically just looking underneath the leaves. Any damaged leaves like that, obviously pull them off out the way, and just check for any eggs or anything like that. If there's anything you're not quite sure about, there's a caterpillar there, can you see? On that little teeny bit there. They're only small, they're only about a quarter of an inch long. But if you can get them whilst they're young, when they haven't done a lot of damage like that, you know, then you can nip them in the bud, and you know, you can get them before they do any sort of real major league damage to any of the plants. Now, obviously, if you're bringing them into the Brassica cage with the rest of your Brassicas, then obviously what they will do, if you're not careful, is transfer themselves over to another plant. So it's just worthwhile just going over and making sure. The one lesson I did learn when I was younger was when I used to grow fuchsias. I actually went out to a place called Willie, and basically they're well known for breeding fuchsias, and they are a really good place. But on the way back, I didn't get it from there. I actually got it on the way back. I saw another place selling fuchsias, and we quickly nipped in there, and I bought this fuchsia. Little did I know that this fuchsia that I bought from the other place, it actually got whitefly on it, and there was only a few eggs or whatever. I didn't actually notice them, but I took that home and put it in my greenhouse, and before I knew where I was, all of the fuchsias that I got in my greenhouse were covered in whitefly. So you know, you've only got to you know, have one thing to start it off, and you know, any bugs like this will just spread like wildfire. Exactly the same way, I never had a problem with red mite on my chickens, and if anybody's ever had chickens, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Red mite is like kind of like a flea which sits on chickens, and it's like basically, you know, like humans getting it. You know, these things sort of sit on the chickens underneath the leaves, underneath the feathers on the wings, particularly under the chest area where it's warm. And what they'll do is they'll aggravate your chickens, and they'll sort of basically wreak havoc with your chickens. So the moral of the story is if you ever get any chickens as well, always check that the chickens that you're getting are free of free of red mites, because you've only got to put one infected chicken into your pen, and literally within a matter of half an hour all of your chickens will potentially have a red mite all over them. So that leaf there is slightly damaged, so I'm just taking that off. Now, the one other thing that I wanted to quickly say, I know I digressed onto chickens then slightly, but it's worthwhile this time of year just checking all of your brassicas. Now, if you've got any brassicas which you've got damaged leaves, if I can just turn the camera around so you can see. If you can see down here, there's some of these leaves at the bottom here are damaged. It's well worthwhile just taking them off and getting them out of the way. So this one here, as you can see, that's not doing the plant any good. All you got to do is pull the leaf to the side like that quickly, and it'll come cleanly off. If you can see that, it comes cleanly off from the plant. So any leaves that you can see, like this one here, basically it's the organic way of growing. Anything that's diseased or sort of like this, obviously that's not going to do the plant any good whatsoever. So you might as well just take it out of the way and dispose of it in your compost heap. Any old sort of decaying leaves like this, just go around and just tidy up. And it does two things really. One, it keeps the wind flowing through your plants, which is good, because that stops the moisture building up underneath the plant and sort of where the fungus will grow and stuff. But also at the same time, any bacteria or anything like that you're seeing in old leaves like this, it'll just take it out of the way, so you'll have nice healthy plants and you won't have any pests. So that's just a very quick tip for you. Okay, so that's the rest of the second batch of the green broccoli gone in. Now what I've done with the purple sprouting broccoli, as you can see, I've put a cane all the way along and some uprights. Now Nigel from over in Wolverhampton has said about the mole not liking noise in the ground and stuff, and Foodie Laura's also very kindly put a comment on about her neighbour puts bottles on top of sticks into the ground like this. So I thought, well, what I'll do, because these leaves are kind of falling over onto the path, I'll kill two birds with one stone. So what I'll do, this is the first time I've ever done this, so what I've done basically is just tied up, I've put some metal stakes in as well, just hold it all up, but I've tied up the purple sprouting broccoli along, and what I've done is on every cane, which is probably about every couple of foot, I've put a bottle, and hopefully that will drive the mole away. Now, what I have noticed is amongst here there's been quite a bit of sort of mole sort of movement, if you like, which I've explained before, where I've had to kind of come up and I've had to keep sort of treading in the plants where the mole's loosened the ground off. So I know the mole is sort of predominantly in kind of this area here. I haven't seen any evidence over here of it, to be honest with you, whilst I've been doing that, and I've not seen any evidence in the next tunnel, so I think the mole is between here and the front of the allotment there. So all being well, what these bottles will do, along with any garlic, if I see any holes I'm going to put some garlic down the holes as well, but hopefully these will blow about in the wind and it'll drive the Mr. Mole out of the allotment, fingers crossed. Okay, so just getting back to the standard broccoli, what I've done is I've put all the plants in now. I'm going to give this a really good water in a bit. I'm going to get the sprinkler in here and give it a really good soaking, because I know we're up for a few hot days without any rain, so I'm going to give this a really good soaking with the sprinkler. And I've got the majority of the kind of dead leaves out of here, as you can see, all of the yellow ones and that. So I know there are a few more, like this one here, look, which I'll just quickly get out. And basically anything like that, just take it out of the plant and then sort of get it out of the way. So what I'll do now, as I say, I'll just give this a really good watering, and that, all being well, should be the second lot of Calabrese with a good start. So I just want to do a few of the questions that have come through in the last week or so. First one comes from Wayne Haycock, and he's talking about his cauliflowers, and it was in response to me talking about the broccoli and all the rest of it. I think basically the two things are sort of linked. I think the weather that we're having this year, is causing certain things to come early and other things to suffer basically. But cauliflower, like sort of like broccoli or Calabrese, the green type, is typically harvested around August and September time.
So to actually harvest it in June like I did this year is really unusual. But you know, it may well work to our advantage, because you might be able to get a second crop in, and obviously you know, I sort of have a late sort of harvest. But in the UK, most certainly in our climate, there's kind of two seasons for cauliflower. The first one's obviously from the, you know, the sort of the summer plants. You harvest them around sort of August, September time, and then if you put another batch in which grows over the winter, which is normally a different variety, you normally sort of harvesting that in the spring, sort of I don't know, sort of March, April time. That, you know, that sort of part of the year. But I don't grow cauliflower myself. I have done in the past, but I haven't grown it for a few years. But when I grew it, it was basically the type that you put in the spring, and then you sort of harvest it around sort of August, September time, exactly like the broccoli. The next question comes from Daniel Jenkins, and he was asking me how the ginger's getting on. So this is what the ginger looks like at the moment. The plant that's at the back, that's doing really well, and I'm getting, obviously this is the first one, to give you an idea, that's probably about ½ inch across, and as you can see it's all the way up to kind of here, so that's probably, just step back a little bit, that's probably about 3 foot or so high. And then I've got these two, that's basically one piece of ginger. I put 4 pieces of ginger in here, they're all buried about kind of 6 inches down, and this one's now got three shoots on it, that's all one piece, and there's another piece here which is absolutely nothing's happened at all. I don't know what happened to that one, but obviously it's not grown. This one here and this one here have sort of, I don't know, they've kind of struggled along, but I have been watering them, as you can see. Basically this is the first time I've ever grown ginger. I've known other people grow it, and when I first decided to have a go at growing it this year, what I thought was just to have a look on the internet and through my books and stuff to find out how to grow it. Now, in all honesty, I couldn't find any references in any of the books that I had, at least, about ginger, so I looked on the internet, and basically what they advise you do is you store the you know, sort of the pieces of ginger root on a windowsill till they start to shoot. As soon as they start to shoot in the spring, what you do is you then put them straight into the pot that you're going to grow them in, and don't get them sort of too sort of wet. You know, just keep them moist but not wet, which is exactly what I've done with this. As you can see, you know, I have watered it, but it's not sort of heinously sort of damp. In the UK, you most certainly need to grow it in a greenhouse, I would say. And then basically all I've done is just watered it probably about once a week or twice a week, just giving it a little teeny bit. Not much at all, and then I've just left it to grow. But it does like sort of reasonably dry conditions. You don't want to get it too wet, and it's sort of been growing along there. Now it has got a reasonably long season to grow, so what I'm going to do is leave it in here until it starts to kind of die down. It looks very much like a, I don't know, a bit of like a grass sort of thing, to be honest with you. A bit like not quite bamboo, but it's got that kind of sort of look about it. And what I'm going to do is just leave it in there until all of these top part of it starts to die down. Then I'll dig it up and see what it looks like, and I'll show at the end of the year what it's come out like. As I say, all I did is I bought 4 reasonable sized pieces of ginger. They were about sort of 4 or 5 inches long, from it was actually from Asda, I think. And what I did is I looked out for some that have got like sort of eyes on the side, like a potato, if you like, or at least the startings of them. And then I just put them in the shed, kept them reasonably warm, and till they started to shoot at the side. And then basically all I did was planted them about 6 inches down, and then I've grown them in this pot. Obviously the ground's really fertile. It's a mixture of chicken manure and good quality potting compost, which I bought, and I've just had it growing there. As I say, it's the first time I've grown it, so I don't know what the results are going to be like. But as I say, when I was looking on the internet, I couldn't find any. Sorry, in the books, I couldn't find any reference to how to grow it. And I found a few videos of people growing it in the United States of America, and I basically just copied what they were doing, except I did it inside rather than outside. Okay, and the next comment comes from Ken Fuller, and he was talking about garlic. You know, I've been spraying the beans with garlic, because I've had a few black fly on there, and you know, just to control it. And what Ken does basically is puts a whole garlic bulb in his liquidizer or food blender, and what he does is he whizzes that up full of water, strains that out into a pot bottle, and then he said he waters his down 10-1 and then sprays that on. The one thing I found when I've used garlic, I mean, there's lots of different ways in it. I just crush it with a normal garlic crush, and then put some warm water on it, leave it overnight, and then the following day I spray it. That's basically the way I do it. But I always do it fresh. I don't make a load of it up. I put about 4 or 5 reasonable sized garlic cloves, about the size of your thumb, in there, the night before, and strain that out and then spray it on. That's basically what I do. But what Ken does is make a whole load up into a pot bottle, and he waters that down 10-1 and sprays it on. So thanks for your comment, Ken. Next one comes from Ravnos, and he was talking about multi-headed sunflowers, and he was saying that it was off the back of my comment where I said I've got all these Russian giant sunflowers, and I think the one down the bottom, in all honesty, I think that's actually crossbred with something else. But I think there's quite a few people this year who have had some quite unusual results out of the sunflowers. But what Ravnos has said is he's actually bought multi-headed dwarf sunflowers, so he's expecting loads of heads on his sunflowers, and he's had completely the opposite. He's had one single large head on each one, so he's had completely the opposite what he should have as well. So I think there is something a bit strange about the sunflowers this year, and it's most certainly to do with the weather. So thanks for your comment, Ravnos. The next one comes from Foodie Laura, and she was talking about windmills. Now I did mention this the other day when I was down the bottom, sort of tidying up and all the rest of it when I did the tour. But what I've actually done down the bottom is put some sticks in with some bottles on the top, and also there's somebody else who made a comment as well. I think it was Nigel from over in Wolverhampton, Muddy Boots, and he was also saying about putting windmills in the ground, and the rattling sound sort of aggravates the moles and gets them to sort of move on, sort of thing. But what I've done, I've put a load of bottles down the bottom now, and hopefully they'll rattle about in the wind and they'll sort of deter the mole away. So fingers crossed. But in all honesty, I've not seen any evidence of it for about a week, so he might have already gone, to be honest with you. The next one comes from Dave Jewis, I think he pronounced his surname. I apologise if that's not the way to pronounce it. Anyway, he said, why has there been so many weeds this year? I don't know, but I think everybody suffered from them. I've had loads of comments from various people on the channel, and everybody's been saying what the weeds are like this year. Now I've had this allotment, as I've said, this is the 12th year I've had it, and I've also had the one across the back there for sort of 6-7 years before that. And in all honesty, I have never ever once known the weeds to be this bad. I've known years where we've had plenty of weeds, but this year has been absolutely incredible. And I think what it's down to is we've had plenty of rain, and then we've had plenty of sort of hot, dry weather, and I think that's been ideal for the weeds, and that's what's brought them on so well. So I think again it's down to the weather. I think it's the fact that we've had rain and then we've had lots of hot weather, and that's basically just germinated all the weeds and off they've gone, sort of thing. But the weeds I've had this year have been absolutely incredible. I mean, last weekend I filled 3 of the big composting bins with weeds. I don't think I've ever pulled that many weeds out in one go before. And where before I've sort of come up and I've been able to control it and sort of hoe them down when they're just sort of a couple of inches high or whatever, this year I've come up, and where there's been no weeds a few days before, they're up at a foot high, and then if you leave them another day, they're up here. So it's the rate in which they're growing is absolutely incredible, and this I don't think there's more of them. I just think it's the rate in which they're growing. They seem to go from seedling to fully grown plant with seeds all over them in the space of a week or two, which is quite unusual. But anyway, I think that's what it is. It's down to this warm, hot weather that we've had, but we've also had plenty of rain as well to to sort of bring them on. The next one comes from Edo Lutz 2004. Apologies if I haven't pronounced that right. And he was saying about sprouts. Now, I haven't grown sprouts myself a few years now. We don't eat typically many sprouts in our family. We tend to have them at sort of Christmas and stuff like that, but we don't tend to have them the rest of the year. But yes, basically there are two main reasons for stripping the leaves off sprouts. One, you're exposing the sprouts so you can see them, but what it also does is if you take the leaves off, it actually encourages the plant to mature the sprouts a little bit early. So if you are wanting to bring your crop on a little bit earlier, then start to take the leaves off. Most certainly take the leaves off the bottom, But if you take the majority of the leaves off the plant, it'll sort of mature a lot sort of quicker, or you know, the sprouts on there. So what I would suggest you do, which is what I've done in the past, is on sort of half your plants, if you like, take off on all your plants, take the bottom leaves off, and then on a few of the plants take a lot more of the leaves off, and then you'll find that those plants that you've taken more of the leaves off, the sprouts will develop a lot quicker, and it'll give you a succession of sort of crops, if you like. So it'll bring some of them on, and the others that you've left the leaves on, it'll delay them a little bit further. And then as soon as you start to pick the sprouts off the plants that you pulled the leaves off, then start to pull some of the leaves off the others as well, which will bring them on as well. So it's basically, there's two reasons for taking the leaves off sprouts. One, so you can see them, so you can pick them. Secondly, so that it basically brings the crop of sprouts on a little bit quicker. So that's the reason for doing that. The next one comes from Richard Sydenham, and he was again talking about the mole, and he said it was quite funny that I was talking about the mole, and he says the answer's in your arms. And at the time, if you remember, I'd got Dorothy, my Jack Russell, or one of my Jack Russells, and you're right, a Jack Russell by nature, I should be able to put her down there and she should be, you know, running around trying to get the mole. But I can assure you, she's bloody useless, and if I put her on the ground, she'll just be looking at me to pick her back up. She's not that way inclined, unfortunately, but yes, you're right, Jack Russell should be down there, you know, fetching all the vermin out. But unfortunately, they're as soft as bugger, and all they do basically is they're either on top of me or on the settee asleep, and that's all pretty much they do. So unfortunately, I haven't got that type of Jack Russell. That's the comments for this week. Okay, so I've just been sorting through the tying up the cucumbers and stuff like that in the greenhouse, and I've noticed that this tomato here has seemingly got a bit of blight on the look of it. So what I'm going to do is just cut that off. I'm going to take the top off there, cut that off, and then basically get rid of all of this. Now there are a few leaves down the bottom end which I sprayed a few months ago, and you know, when I thought I'd got blight, but seemingly I've got some active fungus on this branch here, or this stem. So I'm going to take that off about an inch or so below, onto healthy. Healthy stem. Now there's a little side shoot there which will continue to grow, but I'm most certainly going to take that off. So with this weather that we're having at the moment, this really is the month where we're going to get sort of the end of July, start of August really is when you need to be quite vigilant, looking through and making sure that you've got nothing like this in any of your tomatoes. And if you do have it, obviously immediately take out any affected part of the plant. In addition to that, what I will be doing in the next few minutes is taking out some of the lower leaves of the tomato plants. You do this for a couple of reasons really. One, you want to try and get some more light down onto the tomatoes, and because they've got leaves up, the tomato plants have got leaves further up the plant, you don't really sort of rely on the bottom leaves too much. But I also want to try and get as much sort of air circulation as I can through here, particularly if you've got your tomatoes reasonably close like I have. You want to try and get as much sort of airflow through to stop anything like blight, which is obviously a fungus, from establishing within the plants. Okay, one of the questions that I've had, in fact there's been a few comments actually, when I did a tour of the field, you were asking about the Harry's fencing, and people saying that it's quite neat, and you can use it for various things. I mean, Harry's fencing isn't possibly the most attractive thing, but what it is it's very practical and it's very easy to use. Within a few minutes you can basically put it up and sort of attach it to itself, and you can make squares, oblongs and whatever else, and then put some netting over the top of it, and you can basically stop any birds or any other sort of animals getting in to, onto your vegetables and that. And it is quite easy to get hold of, and basically the one thing that you need to remember is they're basically used by builders to sort of fence off, sort of temporary fence off building sites and stuff like that. And if they are damaged, they're not legally able to use them again. So the best way to get hold of them, if you've got a building site nearby, and you've got the ability to go and ask the foreman or whatever, that's the way I've got the last 6 that I've got. Basically, just go and ask them and say, have you got any scrap Harris fencing? Because they can't send them back to the hire company or whatever if they've been damaged in any way, shape or form. And typically the damage is just slight, you know for an allotment it's perfectly good. So there's that way of getting them, and they're normally happy for you just to take them sort of away, because it's actually going to cost them to scrap them anyway, because basically what they're going to be doing is putting them in a skip or whatever, to get rid of them. So you can get them that way, which is exactly how most people here have done it. The other way to do it is if you look on eBay. Funny enough, I've just this minute had a look, and there are Harris fencing panels for sale on eBay as low as £6 each. So obviously you need to go and pick them up, or you need to find somebody to go and pick them up for you. They are reasonably big. They're I think they're 8 foot tall. They're 7 foot tall, and they're sort of 10 foot long. But you can get them potentially on, if you've got a people carrier or something like that, you can potentially get them on the roof rack. Sort of carry them sort of 3 or 4 at a time. But other than that, you probably need a trailer or something like that. But if you have got local building sites, to be honest with you, 2 people can quite easily carry them. They're not that heavy, even though they're made of metal. They're quite sort of lightweight, so you can actually pick them up and carry them. But they are really useful. As I say, I've just got 6. I'm actually taking mine apart because I want to use the pipe work to make another sort of. I like the oval shaped sort of tunnel type shaped things, because I just think they look better. But from a practical point of view, if you're not that that good with your hands building stuff out of steel and stuff like that, all you need to do is basically get 4 of them, and you can very quickly make a like a square to to put your vegetables in and all the rest of it. Or if you get sort of 6, you can do an elongated one. And the only thing you really need to do is like cut a sort of doorway out somewhere. And basically what you need to do for that is if you just cut up the mesh, if you like, and then basically hinge it by just putting some cable ties on there, and then basically you've got a hinging door then. Then all you need to do then is just put a piece of wire at the other end just to fasten it whilst you're not there. But you're only keeping birds out and stuff like that. I mean, most people up here use them to stop the pigeons basically. Or if you've got chickens, obviously it'll keep chickens in. It'll also keep foxes out and stuff like that. But what a lot of people have done, which you'll have seen on the last video, is they've put the Harrison fencing up, but also in addition to that, they've also put like chicken mesh round and attached that to the sort of Harrison fencing, and that will also stop smaller birds or butterflies and stuff like that going through potentially, or rats and mice and stuff like that. So they are really useful. If you haven't if you're embarrassed about going up and asking people on building sites and stuff like that, you can go on eBay. You can pick them up. I've seen sort of piles of them for sale. I've seen one where there's sort of £10 each, and they've got about 400 of them. I've seen them, but they're absolutely brand new ones. I have seen them as much as £30 each, to be honest with you. But I've also seen some that have been sort of second-hand used ones, and they're being sold for sort of £6 each or something like that. So you can pick them up, and if you go to the hire companies, which is the other bit of advice I was going to give you, these hire companies, obviously they do get some back which are damaged. They're not able to use them again. If you and in fact they're not able to repair them either. They're not. There's laws against them repairing them. So if you go to these hire companies and say that you're an allotment holder and basically you want to, you want some Harris fencing panels, you'll find that they'll find sort of half a dozen for you. For a reasonably low cost, and they'll probably bring and drop them off at your plot for you as well. So the best thing that I can advise is go on the internet and either go on eBay to see if you can buy some, and obviously you might need to go and collect them yourself then, or if you go to the actual hire companies that hire them out to building sites and stuff like that, you will find that if you sort of phone them up and say that you're after some damaged panels and you want to do it cheaply because it's an allotment, you'll probably find that they'll actually come and drop them off at your allotment plot for you, and you can do it that way. So there are means and ways of getting hold of them. So have a look in your local sort of directory and have a look, see if there's any companies, or just go on the internet and say, put in there Harris fencing hire and stuff like that, and then just phone the companies up and say that you're after some panels, and I'm sure they'll be able to sort you out. So don't don't worry, that there are easy places out there to get hold of them, and to be honest with you, within sort of half an hour or so on the internet you will find a place and you will get some quite cheaply. Well, I hope this episode of Jim's Love of Garden has been some use to you. Please don't hesitate to put any comments or questions you've got below, and I'll always get back to you. And I'll see you on the next episode of Jim's Love of Garden.